This is our review for MAT 0018, Test 2. We'll start off with a little bit of review from the first test material. First is our sign rules. So if we have addition, remember we look and see if we have like signs or different. Our first problem is like signs. We have both negative. So our rule is add the numbers and keep the sign. So like signs, add, keep the sign. Our second problem just has an extra number there. So just go across. So we'll do the first two. You have one negative and one positive. That's going to be different signs. Different signs subtract. So 18 minus 6 will give us 12. Sign of the larger. You always have to do the math, deal with the sign. We'll bring over the next one. And now you check your signs again. This time we have like signs. Like signs should add and keep the sign. So negative 21. Our third problem. This is different signs, a negative and a positive. Different signs subtract, just the biggest minus smallest. So 7 minus 5 is 2. Sign from the larger. So sign is going to come from the 7. A positive, you don't have to write a positive. Our next problem is what we're used to seeing as subtraction. But when you're dealing with signs, if you think of this thing you're used to as a subtract, if you think of it as the sign of the next piece instead, it makes it a little easier to do. So we'll have a 15, and we'll take that over and make it the sign of the 23. So that will just make us different signs. Once you move it over, then you're just thinking like or different. So different signs, you're going to subtract. So 23 minus 15. And sign of the larger. So sign from the 23. Our next one also looks like a subtraction, 4 minus a negative 3. But we don't really want to deal with subtraction, so we're going to clean this up. Minus a negative or opposite of a negative will always give you a positive. Now it takes both of those to make a positive. The 4 doesn't change, it just comes down. And now look at what you have and don't look back. We have like signs. Like signs add, keep the sign. Our next problem just has more pieces, but it also looks like subtract, so we're going to just work on these first two. And we're going to clean up. This minus a negative is going to give us a plus. So we're going to have a plus 7. The negative 11 stays. Those are different signs. Different signs should subtract. Sign of the larger. We'll bring down the 15 and we'll go ahead and move that sign over with the 15. So we can think signs. We have like signs. Like signs add. Keep the sign. For our next two problems, we have multiplication and we have a division. Your sign rules are the same for those. You do regular multiplication or division, and then you count the negatives. Odd number of negatives will give you a negative answer. Even number of negatives will give you a positive answer. So on problem 7, negative 5 times negative 7. If you want to do the signs first, you have two negatives. That's even. With a multiplication problem, even number of negatives will give you a positive. 5 times 7 is 35. You should get in a habit of either doing your signs at the beginning or the end. So next, number 8. 42 divided by negative 6. We'll do the division. 6 into 42 goes 7. For my signs, I only have one negative. That's odd, so this one will be negative. For the first part of problem 9, what you want to notice that you have is you have absolute values. The straight lines mean absolute, and that's asking you a question. It's asking you how far is the number inside away from 0? How far is negative 7 away from 0? It is 7 spaces. The next one, we have an absolute and we have an extra sign. You have to do the absolute first. You cannot do minus a negative or opposite a negative makes positive. You can't jump over that absolute. So we'll do the absolute first. How far is negative 7 away from 0? Will be 7 spaces, and then I would just bring this outside one down. Or you can say take the opposite of. Our next two parts of problem 9 have parentheses. Notice they're curved. They are not straight. The curved ones do not have a special meaning. They're just holding the number inside. So a sign on the outside, a negative on the outside, you can say take the opposite of whatever's in there. So opposite of 5 will be a negative 5. And part D, also it's curved. You want to think about those. Is it curved or straight? It's curved. So opposite of whatever's in there, opposite of a negative, makes a positive 3. Our next problem is an evaluate problem. Remember, evaluate means to substitute the given values into the variables and then simplify with order of operations. So into the A, we're going to put the 3. Into the B, in both places, we're going to place a negative 2. And into the C, we'll place a 4. We want to preserve all the operations that are there. So we're going to keep the negative 4. We're going to keep the parentheses. I'm going to switch to blue so you can tell what I'm doing. So 3. My minus is already there. And my 2 is going to be times my B. So I'm going to use a little parentheses there for my B, which is a negative 2. Close your parentheses that's there. Minus from your problem, and your B and C are going to multiply. Since we're substituting those, we'll put them in parentheses. Our B is a negative 2. Our C is a 4. Very important not to lose this sign. It was in your problem. Your B was negative, so you have 2 signs there. Now we'll go with order of operations. So inside this parentheses, there is some math to do, so we'll do that first. And we would need to do the multiplication. So if we do this multiplication, 2 times a negative 2 will give us a negative 4. So I'm just leaving that sign there. So negative 4. So I still have that sign. It would have actually been okay to take it with you. But now we'll clean it up, and minus a negative will make plus. So we have 3 plus 4. Will give us 7 for this parentheses. Check around this parentheses. There's no exponent, but out here we have a multiplication. So we need to keep that. And this part I'm just going to bring down. Getting a little trouble for space here. Now, there are no exponents. Our next level would be multiplication, so we'll start across. Negative 4 times 7 will give us a negative 28. We'll do the next multiplication. Negative 2 times 4 will give us negative 8. Don't lose this sign. We'll bring it down. So here we have minus and negative together. Will give us a plus. So you have different signs. Different signs subtract. Sign of the larger. This is a tricky problem. You had to be very careful. Problem 11. I'm going to simplify. This is an order of operations question. We're going to start in the parentheses, and we have nested grouping symbols here, parentheses and brackets. You start at the innermost set and work your way out. So we'll start inside. We have 2 minus 7, or 2 and a negative 7. Different signs. Subtract, sign of the larger. So that will give us a negative 5. We're going to keep the brackets. So we have 20 divided by a negative 5. You can put a little parentheses if you want to. We'll bring everything else down. Now, we are still in the brackets. 20 divided by negative 5. 5 into 20 will go 4 times. And you have 1 negative. That's odd, so it'll be negative. Check around your bracket. There's no exponent, so we're good there. Right here in front, the 10 is right beside the bracket. That means to do multiplication. You can do a dot, you can do a parentheses, or you can do a little bracket. We'll just do a little parentheses, and we'll bring everything else down. Right, now we're done with our grouping symbols. This parentheses doesn't count. There's no math inside to do. Level 2 will be the exponents. You have to remember here whether or not the negative gets to go to the power. There is no parentheses, so it does not. You're going to do 3 times 3, which will give you 9, and then you only have one negative. So this means 3 times 3 and 1 sign. So it gives us a -9. Then we'll do the multiplication. 10 times a -4 will give us -40. And now we're down to addition. We have like signs. Add and keep the sign. So -49.